Shalom, shalom. Most High Christ bless. If you can hear me, thumbs up. Good morning. Good morning. All praises. All praises. So the topic is the Hasmonean legacy, part two. Last time I taught, I think it was last week, I went into the part one. I kind of went into a brief history prior to getting to the Hasmonean, which I'm going to continue that here in this class. All right, let's begin. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Let's see here. Move this to the side. I got my laptop, so I won't be looking at the screen. I won't be able to see it. Oh, yeah. All right. All right. We covered Second Maccabees, the third chapter. Uh, Going over Seleucus, the fourth Philopator, also Daniel's 11 and Daniel's 8. So we're going to start there because I think the next king that ruled was, we left off, I think, in Antiochus Epiphanes. So let's go back to Daniel's 11. We're going to recap briefly and we're going to continue. Daniel's 11 and verse 20. So we're going to Daniel 11, verse 20. First, before we go there, let me get my scripture. Job 8 and 8. Let's go to Job 8 and 8. I don't know if we got the scribe here with us. I'm not sure. If not, we're going to Job 8 and 8. All right. The book of Job, chapter 8 and verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. So that's what we did. And this is the counsel from Job. Let us know we have to search the scriptures to look at the ancient, to see what our fathers did, to better understand the conditions that we are in today. All right. So that's what we're doing. This is, remember, the Bible is a history book. So now let's go to Daniel's 11. Daniel's 11. And I'm going to go to the verse we left off at. We left off in verse 20. Let's read verse 20. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of his kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Now, this is Seleucus the fourth Philopator. This is the son of Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Third, the great king. He had three sons. One of his sons is not fully mentioned in history. He was his heir, but um, he was not the king that's in question here. We're reading here. The ones that's in question in our history that conquered us, or that's more important, is the other two sons he had. He had three, but the other two was what we read in verse 20 here, and Seleucus the fourth Philopator and Antiochus Epiphanes, which is that evil Edomite that wreak havoc amongst the Israelites, our forefathers. So that's what we're dealing with. So verse 20 is going into Seleucus the fourth Philopator. He died not in anger nor in battle, meaning he got murdered by his treasurer Heliodorus, who poisoned him. We read that last week, so go to that class. I'm not gonna go recap that. Just watch the last class. He poisoned him, and that's how he died. That's why it means he died not in anger nor in battle. Uh, so now we in verse 21. Verse 21. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. Now, this is Antiochus Epiphanes, his brother. Now, brief history that I did in last class. Antiochus Epiphanes is the brother of Seleucus the fourth Philopator. We just read in verse 20. Remember, to rule in your stead after you die is supposed to be your son, not your brother. Now, Seleucus the fourth Philopator brother did reign for a short time. I think he was young, 10 years old. He reigned for a little bit. His name was also Antiochus. Okay. He reigned also right after Seleucus the fourth Philopator. But when before Seleucus the fourth Philopator died, he gave his son Demetrius, which is his son, into hostage to Rome to replace or to free his brother Antiochus Epiphanes. This is why when we read the first Maccabees 1 in verse 10, it reads how Antiochus Epiphanes came from hostage from Rome because he was a hostage in Rome due to what his father did on getting counsel from Hannibal when the Roman Republic was becoming a superpower and they came to battle them uh, and battle them and take over Asia and those areas. So because he counseled with Hannibal the Great, the black warlike general who ruled Carthage, who's Tunisia today, when he ruled, he fell to Scipio Africanus, and he was an advisement to Antiochus Epiphanes, uh, the great king. And when Rome found out about that, you getting counsel from this black warlike general Hannibal, we're gonna go ahead and take your kids into hostage and give you a big tax. And that's how Antiochus Epiphanes became a hostage in Rome, because he had to been sent to Rome as a hostage because of what his father did. And later on, his brother ruled, what we read in here in verse 20, Seleucus the fourth Philopator. And from there, when he ruled, he uh, helped get his brother free from hostage in Rome, which is Antiochus Epiphanes, by giving his son, which is Antiochus Epiphanes' nephew, which is Demetrius. We're gonna go on that later. And when he gave him to be released, Rome released him. He came from Rome, and that's how. And later on, Seleucus the fourth got put to death by Heliodorus by poisoning. And when he died, his son Antiochus took over. And when Antiochus Epiphanes came from Rome, he murdered his nephew, which is Seleucus the fourth Philopator's son, and took the kingdom. This is why we're reading. Now I caught you up. Now we're reading in verse 21. So play the video back if you don't understand. There's a lot of confusion a little bit because the names get similar. You got Antiochus, then you got Antiochus Epiphanes, then you got Antiochus the third. So, but it's all different people. So now I caught you up on how Antiochus Epiphanes becoming ruler. He killed his nephew and took the kingdom. This is what we're reading here in verse 21. So let's read it again. Daniel 11, verse 21. And in his estate shall stand, whose estate? Seleucus the fourth, his brother, who just got murdered by poisoning by Heliodorus. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. Why didn't they give Antiochus Epiphanes the honor of the kingdom? Because it was by technicality, he took the kingdom through murdering, flatteries. That's what he did. That's what Antiochus Epiphanes did. He killed his own nephew to take the kingdom because he was not heir next to heir. It was the son of Seleucus the fourth was next to heir, which is Antiochus Epiphanes' nephew. His name was also Antiochus. To whom they shall not give an honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. So he killed this his nephew, took the kingdom, and he came in peaceably trying to persuade the people that he's the guy. He's like by flatteries. Here's a precept. First Maccabees 1, I'm sorry, is it second Maccabees? Yeah, second Maccabees 4 in verse 7. I believe this is where we left off at last week, if I'm not mistaken. Second Maccabees 4 and 7. But after the death of Seleucus, we just read that in Daniel's 11 and verse 20, after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. So the point I wanted is he took the kingdom. Why? Because he murdered his nephew. He murdered his nephew, took the kingdom. He murdered his nephew named Antiochus and took the kingdom. And then he became to rule and wreak havoc. He Hellenized entire Jerusalem. Now, this Antiochus Epiphanes is a evil Edomite king. Okay. Now let's go back to Daniel. Now we read it. It says he took the kingdom, going back to Daniel 11 and verse 21. And in his and in I'm gonna slow down because I know Bishop told me, man, you go too fast. So I'm gonna slow down. Sometimes I get to going, but I'm not realizing, people listening. All right. Daniel's 11, verse 21 again. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person. This vile person we're reading is Antiochus Epiphanes, to whom they shall not give the honor to the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. I'm gonna get First Maccabees 1 and verse 10. Here's another precept to prove that. Because remember, I mentioned he was freed by his brother before his brother got put to death or murdered. He was freed by his brother, uh, Seleucus the Fourth, from Rome. Here's the precept to prove that. First Maccabees 1 and verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root. This is that vile person Daniel is seeing. So now, remember, Daniel's in Babylon captivity. Remember, it's Babylon, Persian and Mede, Greek, then Rome. Babylon is when Daniel is prophesying what is going to take place during the time of the Maccabees or during the time of the Greek rulership. So this is 200 or 300 years prior till it's actually taking place. Okay, so First Maccabees 1 and 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surname Epiphanes. Epiphanes mean God manifested on earth. This man called himself a god on earth. That's what Epiphany means. Son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome. Do you see what we're reading? Because why was he a hostage? Because what his father Antiochus the great king did on counseling with Hannibal, the black warlike general. And the Roman Republic was mad about that. So they said, we're going to tax you, not just you, but your seed after you, and we're going to take hostages. And one of the first hostages they took was Antiochus Epiphanes. So now he's being freed. So we're fast forwarding a bit. Who had been hostage at Rome, and he reigned in 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So let's go back. Give me a second. Okay. All right, going back to Daniel's. So that's that vile person we read in Daniel's 11. Now let's go to Daniel's 8 a bit. Let's backtrack a little bit. We're going to go to Daniel's 8. We're going to read, we read 8 and 8, but we're going to skip. We're going to go straight to Daniel's 8 and 21. Daniel's 8:21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. That's Alexander the Great. We went over that last class. Verse 22. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. So those four king are the four generals. You got Seleucus, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy. These are the four generals that ruled after Alexander the Great. And out of those four, Seleucus is the one we're dealing with, because out of Seleucus, Nicanor, that's Seleucus the first Nicanor, came four more after him, and then Alexander the Great king, and then Seleucus the fourth, and then Antiochus Epiphanes came. So Daniel is giving us that breakdown here. Now let's read verse 23. Daniel 8, verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Now, this verse here is twofold, probably threefold. When it mentions the transgressions are come to a full, it's talking about the times that we in now. We're in the last days also. But I'm going to deal with it in the context of Daniel when he's seen the vision. Because remember, we're dealing with the four different captivities how Daniel seen the vision. So I'm gonna read it again. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance, of understanding dark sentences shall stand. Now, this king that understands dark sentences is talking about King Antiochus Epiphanes. That's that king we're talking about. That's the king who ruled the Greeks. We just read that in First Maccabees 1 and 10. We just read that. That's why I'm coming here. Daniel, I'm showing you Daniel's seen this prior to it actually happened. And he prophesied this. And this chapter here is Daniel seeing his dream, and now the Lord is interpreting that dream to Daniel. What we're reading here, verse 20 on down. But we on 23. So I'm reading again. And the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors of are come to a full, a king, Antiochus Epiphanes, of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. So understanding the dark sentences, meaning this king understood the Bible. This king understood some of the mysteries in the Bible. Uh, here's a precept. Take that with you. What does it mean? Uh, dark sentences. Because remember, I made a statement. This king is going to understand dark sentences. He's going to understand prophecies. He's going to understand the Bible. Okay. Here's a precept for dark sentences. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8 and verse 8. If a man desire much experience, she knoweth things of old. That she, let's read verse 1 to know who the she is. Wisdom of Solomon 8 and 1. Wisdom reacheth from one end to another, mightily and sweetly doth she order all things. So the she, what we're reading in verse 8, is talking about wisdom. Now we're going to go back to down and jump down to verse 8. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8, verse 1. If a man desire much experience, she, meaning wisdom, knoweth things of old, and conjureth aright what is to come. So wisdom tell you what our fathers went through, and it also tell us prophecies. Okay, that's what it means. What's to come. She knoweth the subtleties of speeches and can expound dark sentences. She foreseeth signs and wonders and the events of seasons and times. So, understanding dark sentences, you know prophecies, you know mysteries, and you know history. It gives you experience on that. Okay. Here's another one. Let's get Psalms 78. Let's read verse 2 just to further explain those dark sentences. Psalms, we're going to Psalm 78, verse 2. I will open my mouth in a parable. This is David now, right? Oh no, this is Asaph. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. And this is why we got history in A, and we're going to the old to know what our fathers said. So understanding dark sayings or dark sentences is understanding history. Okay. One more precept. One more precept. Let's go to Proverbs 1 to 6. I think we pull this a lot. I'm just further proving to you guys what does it mean to understand dark sentences. Proverbs 1 and 6. To understand a proverb, this is not King Solomon. Solomon wrote the book of Proverbs. Uh, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. So that's why I said understanding dark sentences, understanding mysteries, interpretations, history, and prophecies. Okay. Now we're going to go back to Daniel's 8, verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king. What latter time of whose kingdom? The four generals that came after Alexander the Great. Seleucus, who took Syria, Ptolemy, who took Egypt, Cassander, I think took Greek, and you got Lysimachus. Okay. But Seleucus, out of Seleucus' line came Antiochus Epiphanes. So verse 23 again. And then in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king, Antiochus Epiphanes, of fierce countenance, meaning that vile person or that wicked root, understanding dark sentences. So this king will understand history. He'll understand uh, uh, prophecies. He'll understand dark sentences. He'll understand dark sentences, wisdom, and he'll understand interpretation of the scriptures and prophecies. Okay. Um, and here's the proof. And well, this is why Antiochus Epiphanes did this. Let's go to First Maccabees, uh, 1, verse 41. Now we just read chapter First Maccabees 1 and 10. Now we're going to go to verse 41. Okay. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his kingdom that all should be one people. Now, why would a king do that? It's something he have to understand to know to make everybody one people. It's heavy. Verse 42. And everyone should leave his laws. Why would a king who took over? Because many kings rule over us. Alexander the Great ruled over us. Seleucus the Fourth ruled over us. He didn't. They allowed us to sacrifice. We read that in last class in Second Maccabees. I'm gonna show you this. Second Maccabees, the third chapter. Second Maccabees, the third chapter, real quick. I'm gonna go through it. Verse 3. In so much that Seleucus, king of Asia, of his own revenues, bear all the costs belonging to the service of the sacrifice. So this king, when he was, this is Antiochus Epiphanes' brother. When before he died, when he was ruling, he allowed us to keep the sacrifice. He allowed us to sacrifice. He allowed us to keep our feast days and high holy days. That's what he did. He was wicked as hell. He's still an Edomite king, but some kings allowed us to keep our laws. All it requires is to pay taxes. But then you got that king, like here we in America. We don't keep they stop us from keeping certain feast days when Rome ruled. This is America's extension of Rome, but Rome stopped that thing eventually in 70 AD. But the point is, I'm showing you that some wicked kings ruled us, and we was allowed to keep our feast days, our holy days, even during the time of Persia under King Cyrus. When you read in the book of Ezra chapter 1, they allowed Nehemiah to go build a temple, build the walls. He said, I seen because the Lord anointed the King Cyrus. We're going to read a little bit about that in Daniel 11 as well, about King Cyrus, but he allowed us. So I'm showing you different rulers. They allowed us to keep our feasts in our high holy days, even though we was under servitude under them. Okay. Now let's go back. First Maccabees 1 and verse 41 again. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbaths. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and to the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land. So the question is, why did he do that? Because King Antiochus, what we just read in Daniel 8, verse 23, understood dark sentences. He understood that if I allow the Israelites, our forefathers, to keep the commandments and keep the feast, their God will fight for them. You understand that? So this is why King Antiochus, understanding these dark sentences, these interpretation of the scriptures and mysteries, and also the history, he said, I'm gonna change the law. No, I'm gonna put a law against them to keep the commandment. Okay. So that's what he did. So let's go back to Daniel 8, verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king, King Antiochus, a fierce countenance understood dark sentences, shall stand up. Verse 24. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully and shall prosper and practice and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. That's exactly what he did. Now, let's get into the class. Well, we're already in the class, but let's go back. Give me a second. I drank some tea. All right. All right. So we're dealing with King Antiochus. Okay, that was Daniel 8:23. Let's go back to Daniel 11:20. Daniel 11, we're at 22 now. So he took the kingdom by flatteries. We showed how he took it. He killed his nephew Antiochus. Verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown from before him. Why? Because we just read that in Daniel 8:24 when it mentioned he's going to take the holy people. So who is he overthrowing? Verse 22. And when the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown. Who's the they? All those who stand against King Antiochus, the Grecians in the Egypt over there when he attacked the Ptolemy in Egypt, as well as the Israelites. We were overthrown as well. They shall overthrown from before him. Before who? Before Antiochus Epiphanes, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant. Then they're talking about Israel. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. So that league Daniel is seeing here is explained in verse 23. And after the league he made a league with Ptolemy. Ptolemy the sixth, I believe. Ptolemy the yes, Ptolemy the sixth. He made a league, and that's Ptolemy the sixth was over Egypt at the time. So he made a league with Egypt. So this is Antiochus. He was very cunning. Antiochus, what he would do, he'll marry your sister or whoever and marry into your kingdom to make league. That's what kings did back in the days. To make a league or covenant between two kingdoms, they would marry off their daughters or their wives or their kinfolks to other kings to show that union. So that's what King Antiochus did. When he made that league, he married Cleopatra, uh, and that's how he made a league with Egypt. But King Antiochus Epiphanes was very cunning. He didn't do it because he was trying to make a league. He did it because he tried to usurp authority and take Egypt. Okay. And that's what he always did. Here's the proof. Let's go to First Maccabees. First Maccabees, still chapter 1. Let's read verse 16. Okay. Verse 16. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt. See that? How did he do that? To make a league with them. That's what we're reading in Daniel's 11. That he might have the dominion of two realms. See that? So this guy was thirsty for power. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Now, although he came against Egypt, he took certain provinces in Egypt, but he never fully ruled the entire Egypt. Okay. The Roman Republic would not allow it. But although he did win some order, we just read that in First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 16. He did overthrow some Ptolemy there, and he took certain provinces in Egypt, but he never fully took entire Egypt. Okay. Because the Roman Republic wouldn't allow it. We're going to read that in Daniel's 11. Okay, let's go back to Daniel's 11, verse 23. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully. That's why I said that. He shall work deceitfully. Because he went to war with this guy. Use him as a puppet leader. And then when he won the battle over Ptolemy, he put Ptolemy as a puppet leader. For he shall come up and become strong with a small people. And verse 24, he shall enter peaceably. Remember, he went in peaceably with the league, but then he overthrew them by doing war. Okay. He shall enter peaceably even unto the fattest places of the provinces. That's why I told you he took certain provinces, certain strongholds in Egypt, but not for Egypt. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, because his father, uh, Antiochus, Antiochus the third great king, what we read in First Maccabees 8 and 6, that's his father, and also First Maccabees 1 and 10, that's his father. He didn't conquer Egypt. Okay. As his fathers, he shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. So he shall rule these various areas in Egypt, these provinces that he overthrew for a time. Not all Egypt, but certain provinces in Egypt. We just read that in First Maccabees 1 and 16 when he leagued with Ptolemy, then later on went war with him, and Ptolemy ran. And then later on he used Ptolemy as a puppet leader in Egypt. Verse 20, where we at? Verse 26. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. King of the south is Ptolemy, with a great army, And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. So this is what we read at First Maccabees 1 and 16. Let's read it again. Let's go back. First Maccabees 1 and 16. Let's jump down to verse 18. And made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Verse 19. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. That's what we read in Daniel's 11. He took certain strong provinces in Egypt. That's why it said he took the strong cities in the land of Egypt. He didn't take all Egypt, certain cities in Egypt, or certain provinces in Egypt. Verse 20. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in 143rd year and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. This is now when he attacked uh Jerusalem, what we read in Daniel's last class. I did this in Daniel's 8, verse 8 and 9, when he went towards the pleasant land. So, so Antiochus Epiphanes had many battles against Egypt. Okay, let's go back to Daniel's 11, verse 26 now. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall and be slain. That's the war he did against Ptolemy. Give me a second. So what he did against Ptolemy. Let's read that again. Verse 26. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. So whoever sits down at the table with King Antiochus, he later on overthrow them and destroy them. So it's all flatteries, it's all deceit. That's why they said it shall rule for deceit. And this is specifically talking about Egypt or many other provinces he took over, and also Jerusalem, Israel, because he also went over there to attack Jerusalem. Verse 27. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper. For the end shall at yet the end shall be at the time. So these kings, King Ptolemy, remember I said he used him as a puppet leader. So eventually he submitted himself to him, and later on King Antiochus ruled them in that certain cities and provinces that he took in Egypt, and Ptolemy was his puppet that he told him to do whatever he wanted him to do. Verse 28. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant. We just read that. Let's go back to First Maccabees to connect the dots. We just read that in First Maccabees. First Maccabees 1 and 20. And after Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned in 143rd year and went against Israel. Let's go back to Daniel's 11, verse 28. Then shall he return into the land with great riches. What? The riches he took from Egypt. And his heart shall be against the holy covenant. What? Against Jerusalem, against the Israelites. And he shall do exploit and return to his own land. Then he went to slaughter Jerusalem. Okay. That's what we read in when we read the First Maccabees 1 later on in that chapter, verse 41, when he made all shall be one people. And okay, verse 29. We're still in Daniel's 11 now. Daniel's 11. Let me see. We got a scrap. Let me see. Oh, I don't see him. Okay, Daniel's 11. Let's go back. Daniel's 11. We just read 28. Now we're going to read 29. Okay, Daniel's 11, 29. At that time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. So now again, Antiochus is going back to Egypt. The south is Egypt. Remember, king of the south is Ptolemy. So after he conquered certain provinces and cities from Egypt, he returned. He went home. Then he went against Jerusalem. We read that when all shall be one people, and he slaughtered. Remember, in First Maccabees 1 and 41 down, he made everybody uncircumcised. He put us to death. So a lot of history is passing here. He put us to flight. He killed our wives that circumcised their children. We're going to read that history, but I'm kind of going through Daniel real quick. Then we're going to go to First Maccabees chapter 1 and finish that chapter. So after doing that, he returns home. Then he returned back to the south. Then he returned to Egypt to go, because remember, he wanted to have two realms. Let's read that again. What we just read that. First Maccabees 1 and 16. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of two realms. This is what his imagination was. Although he never accomplished it, that's what he wanted. So this is why he returned back to the south. Let's go back to Daniel's 11, verse 29 again. And at that time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south. But it shall not be as the former, because the former he was able to conquer Ptolemy and made him a puppet leader. He was able to destroy certain cities and provinces that he got, and the riches and the gold and the silver he got. But it's not now. This time he go back to Egypt, it's not going to prosper. Why? Because here he goes, verse 30. Verse 30. For the ships of Kittim shall come against him. The Roman Republic came against King Antiochus. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsook the holy covenant. So this is Antiochus Epiphanes going against Egypt, but Rome said, we're going to stop that. The Roman Republic stopped them from doing it. That's what it means by the ships of Kittim or Shittim. That's Rome coming against them. And they stopped them from getting over it. And it says, verse 30 again, for the ships of Kittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved. Why? Because they stopped him from coming against him. That's Rome. He shall be grieved and return back home and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. So he was so mad, he said, I'm going to go back to Jerusalem and wreak havoc. And that's what he did. And we read more of that in Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter. Okay. Let's get that. Let's go back. First Maccabees 1. Let's read verse 44. So we read verse 41 through 42. Now we're going to read verse 44. For the king had sent letters by messages unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings. This is what he did. He forbid burnt offering. He forbid us to keep sacrificing offerings for our sins and the holy feasts at the time, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine flesh and unclean beast, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the king's commandment, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. That was the law. It was a law forbidding us to circumcise our children. It was a law forbidding us to keep the high holy days. It was a law forbidding us to keep Sabbaths. It was a law forbidding us to even call ourselves Jews. Understand that. That's some evil stuff. So this king was ruthless and evil. And now, let's go to the scholars and see if the scholars speak any different. Remember last week? This book is very good. This is the who's who in the Bible. The Old Testament, the Apocrypha, and the New Testament. All right? We're going to go look up Antiochus Epiphanes. Let's see what the scholar says concerning Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. Let's read on the Antiochus. We're going to read, if you have it, let me see what paragraph is. 1, 2, 3. We're going to read the 4th paragraph under Antiochus in the who's who in the Bible. Antiochus' greatest ambition was to conquer Egypt. You see that? Did we not read that in the Bible? The scholars know something we don't know. This is why it's good to. This is why we know the Bible is a true book. So all you Christian apologetics and you confused, unlearned yayas that don't believe in the New Testament or don't believe the Bible is canon or the Apocrypha especially is not canon, you're misinformed. I'll leave it at that. Okay, let's read that again. Antiochus, we read that in First Maccabees 1 and 16. He desired to have two realms. One of them was the one he's over, which is Antioch and what's it called? Antioch, which is Asia, and now he's trying to conquer Egypt. Okay. Antiochus' greatest ambition was to conquer Egypt, which he tried to do in several campaigns from 170 to 67 BC. But he was frustrated by the rising power of the Roman Republic. We just read it in Daniel's 11 and verse 30. The ships of Kittim. That's Rome. Let's read it again so we won't lose the thought. Let you know the Bible is kind of, and Daniel is prophesying this 200, I think, 300, 200 some years before the Greeks took over. And he also included Rome. Daniel's, let's read it again. Daniel's 11, verse 30. For the ships of Kittim shall come against him. Against who? Antiochus. Why? Because he went towards the south, and the Roman Republic said, "Nuh-uh." I forget the name of the ruler. Uh, when you look up the Wikipedia, his name, I got to look at it later. But just to move on, it's public information. Look it up. Just look up when Roman Republic came against Antiochus Epiphanes. All right, for the ships of Kittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsook the holy covenant. Now I'm gonna deal with that intelligence because this is gonna go into the class. Them intelligence is the wicked of all people. We're gonna deal with that. I'm gonna name those intelligence in a few, but let me read. Let me go back to the who's who. We're going back here. I know y'all can't see it, but if you have this Bible is a good Bible. This was gifted to me by Bishop. Let me see. There you go. So they got the Apocrypha in it, and they got the New Old Testament and New Testament. This is good to help you out with history. This is the who's who, so y'all can get that. Leadership always showed this book. I don't think it's that expensive. It's in Amazon, but it helps you a lot with the history and understanding when we read the scriptures. All right, let's go back. We're going back to Antiochus, the fourth paragraph. And Antiochus' greatest ambition was to conquer Egypt, which he tried to do in several campaigns from 170 to 67 BC. But he was frustrated by the rising power of Rome. That's Daniel 11, 29 and 30. Because remember, this is his second campaign, Antiochus' second campaign to trying to conquer Egypt. The first time he did, the second time Rome interrupted that, which was reaching into the eastern Mediterranean. On returning from his first Egyptian campaign, he marched into Jerusalem and pillaged the temple. That's what he did. And he destroyed the temple. We just read that in First Maccabees 1 and verse 41 down, when he forbid us to sacrifice. That's what we read. Carrying away its gold vessels and even stripped the gold ornaments from the walls. In a second campaign, a Roman envoy courtly ordered Antiochus to withdraw his forces from Egypt, and he was obliged to submit. This repulse sharpened his fear of Roman domination and his compulsive urge to stamp out religious separatism and enforce a uniform worship to the Greek deities. The harsh steps he took to destroy the Jewish faith provoked armed resistance. That armed resistance is the Hasmoneans. So, well, let's read some more because this is so now. One of his generals was sent to occupy Jerusalem. Who was that general? Who was that general that was sent to occupy Jerusalem? Let's go to second. And one of the Antiochus Epiphanes generals, he sent them to occupy Jerusalem. Second Maccabees chapter 5. Verse 24. I'm going to read up a little bit. I'm going to read verse 21, then we're going to jump to 24. Verse 21. So when Antiochus had carried out of the temple 1,800 talents, he departed. Now we're reading what we just read in the Who's Who. He departed in all haste unto Antiochia, weaning in his pride to make the land uh, navigatable, and the sea passable by foot, such as the haughtiness of his mind. So what temple? Because he destroyed, is the first, he destroyed the temple, to pillaged the people, enslaved them, and also put a lot of our people to death. He cut our mother's stomach open with their children. He destroyed, he killed the mothers that circumcised their children. We read that in First Maccabees 1, or you can read that. I don't think we read it, but you can read that in First Maccabees 1 later on in the chapter. uh Verse 22, and he left governors to vex the nation at Jerusalem, Philip for his country, and Phrygian, and for manners more barbarous than he that set them there. So Philip was one of the governors that he left behind in Jerusalem to vex us. And at Gerizim, Andronicus, and besides Menelaus, who worse than all the rest bear an heavy hand over the citizens, having a malicious mind against his countrymen, the Jews. So Menelaus was a Benjamite. He's the brother to Simon. We read that Second Maccabees, the third chapter. Simon was a Benjamite. His brother was Menelaus. Now we're reading about his brother here, Menelaus, because that's why it says citizen and have a malicious mind against his countrymen, meaning he was an Israelite. He was wicked as hell. This is one of the intelligence. We read in Daniel 11. He's one of the intelligence. Okay, here's the point. Verse 24. He sent also that detestable ringleader Apollonius with an army of 22,000, commanding him to slay all those that were in their best age and to sell the women and the younger sort, who come into Jerusalem and pretended peace, did forbear till the holy day of the Sabbath. When taking the Jews keeping holy day, he commanded his men to arm themselves, and so he slew all them that were gone to the celebrating of the Sabbath, and returning through the city with weapons, slew great multitudes. Verse 27. But Judas Maccabeus with 9 others or thereabout withdraw themselves into the wilderness, and lived in the mountains after the manner of beasts with his company, and who fed on herbs continually, lest they should be partakers of the pollution. So this is Second Maccabees, the 5th chapter, verse 24 down. We read 22, 21 down. We're reading what captain or general or governor Antiochus Epiphanes, after pillaging the temple and destroying the temple, he left governors and his generals in Jerusalem to vex us. And we just read that Apollonius. This is the same Apollonius in Second Maccabees, the 3rd chapter we read last class, who was under Seleucus the fourth Philopator, his brother, who informed Seleucus the fourth about the treasures that was in Jerusalem in the temple. Menelaus' brother Simon alerted him of that. And that's why they went to go pillage the temple and attempt to do it. And the angel of the Lord defended the temple at that time. But this time, years later, Antiochus Epiphanes ruling, he went to go wreak havoc and destroy the temple and took the gold out of it. Okay. So let's go back to the Who's Who, the 5th chapter, the 5th paragraph. On one of his generals was sent to occupy Jerusalem. We just read that. That's Apollonius. He butchered many of the inhabitants, razed the walls, and constructed a fortified citadel near the temple. The practice of Judaism was banned, including observance of the Sabbath and the rite of circumcision. His desecration of the temple was termed by Daniel the abomination of the abomination of desolation. So, showing you that the scholars understood this. Let's go back to the Bible. Let's put this to the side. Let's go back to the Bible. So we're proving, although the foundation is the Bible, but I'm showing you in the scriptures that this was the scholars understood that. Okay. We're gonna go back. I think we left off as First Maccabees 1. how King Antiochus changed the laws of the land. We left off at verse 50. I'm gonna read it again. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. Okay. Now, before we continue there, let's go back to Daniel's 11. Daniel's 11. Daniel's 11 and verse. Let's start at verse 2. So we read Daniel's 11 and 20 down. Now we're going to go jump up to verse 2. Daniel's 11 and 2. Okay. So let's read verse 1. Verse 1. Also, I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. This is Daniel, strengthening Daniel. So then Daniel's telling his dream to the king. Verse 2. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Daniel is giving you the breakdown of the captivities. He's starting now. He's going into Persian and Median captivity. Those 3 kings, write this down, is Cyrus, Cambyses the second, and Darius the second. I'm gonna say it again: Cyrus, Cambyses the second, and Darius the second. Those are the 3 kings that Daniel is prophesying about. And now, okay, I'm gonna do this. Let's let's go to the Wikipedia. I gave you 1 king, right? This is the Persians. I'm gonna read. If you just go to Wikipedia, type in Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great, okay, commonly known as Cyrus the Great, was the founder of the Persian Achaemenid Empire. So Cyrus was the Persian, was one of the first kings in Persia. Wait a minute. Let's go to Ezra. Show you in the Bible. Let's go to Ezra. Going a little bit in here. We're going a little long route, but it's all right. Good, there's some good history here. It's all right. Let's go to First Ezra 1 and verse 1, because Cyrus is actually mentioned in the Bible. So we're going to the Ezra in the Bible, chapter 1, verse 1. The Persian captivity. This is Daniel explaining this. I went back a little bit. Okay. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it also in writing, saying, thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. This goes back to my point. I'm showing, proving that certain kings and certain captivities we were under, they still allowed us to observe our customs and our laws. They didn't mess with that. But King Antiochus Epiphanes was wicked as hell. He didn't allow it because he understand dark sentences. So this is the same Cyrus we're reading Daniel was prophesied about. Remember, Daniel was during the time of Babylonian captivity, and he prophesied about the Persian captivity, which then he prophesied about the Greek captivity. Understand that. So this is how you know our forefathers was prophets, and the Lord was dealing with them at the next level, as he is dealing with us today. Let's go back to Daniel's 11 and verse 2. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand. This is Daniel explaining to the king of the Medes, Darius, what's going to happen. He said, now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings. Cyrus, we just read in Ezra 1. Cambyses, how we know Cambyses is one of them? Because When we go to the Wikipedia, I don't know if you can see that. I'm in my phone. All you gotta do is type in Wikipedia Cyrus the Great. When you go to Wikipedia Cyrus the Great, under Cyrus, you look up the kings of kings of the Achaemenid Empire. You look at successor, or because you know you got predecessor, then you got successor. The successor of Cyrus is Cambyses the second. Okay, that's why I'm giving you the three kings. So the second king of the three that we mentioned is Cambyses. So let's click that. You go to Wikipedia, Cambyses the second. Cambyses the second, he was the son. He Cambyses the second was the son of the successor of Cyrus the Great. This is how you know it's history. This is public information. But understand, Daniel was in the Babylonian captivity prophesying this thing. Now the Lord is. Let me get that in Daniel 4, Daniel 12 and 4, real quick. We're in Daniel's 11, but let's go to the next chapter, Daniel 12. Show you what's taking place. Daniel 12 and verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. Even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. What is he? What the Lord just told Daniel? Seal the book. I mean, that's what I mean by shut up the book. Seal the book, even until the time to the end. We in the end times. So now the book ain't sealed no more. We now all this history has transpired since the time of Daniel till now, when we in America. Now the history is now we can connect the dots. Now the Lord put the spirit on leadership. Now we can connect the dots and see who is this three kings? Who is this? Now we can connect the dots historically that took place because now the prophecy of Daniel actually came to fruition. It came to pass. So now let's go back to Wikipedia. The third king was Cambyses the second. Now all you gotta do is go down to Wikipedia and Cambyses the second and look at successor. In this successor, you see Bardia. Bardia was the son of Cambyses, but this is what happened in history. It's similar to what we just read in Antiochus. Seleucus the fourth, his son Antiochus took over, but they don't mention him in the scriptures. They mention Antiochus Epiphanes. Why? Because Antiochus Epiphanes put Antiochus to death, his nephew to death, and took over the realm. So that's what Daniel mentioned. It's not going to mention every detail. It's going to go to the main characters. So now Berea is not mentioned. He's not one of the three kings. It's really uh Darius, and I'm going to show that to you. When you go to Berea and you click successor, you put Darius the king. Why? Because Berea did not reign long. He was put to death. I'm gonna read it. Under Berea, it says, Berea was a son of Cyrus the Great and the younger brother of Cambyses the second. Because remember, after Cyrus the Great, Cambyses the second ruled, and then he's the younger brother to Cambyses the second. So he tried to rule. So after Cambyses got put down, his brother Berea tried to rule. Both Persian kings. There are sharply divided views of his life. Berea either ruled and Cambodia Empire for a few months in 522 BC, was imprisoned by Mongols called Gomeda, Persia, whose name is given by uh, Satissis. So, and it says until he was toppled by Darius the Great. You see that? So he ruled for a short time, and Darius the Great took over. This is why the three kings we read in Daniel is only dealing with Darius the Great. It's not mentioning Berea. It's not talking about him. It's talking about Darius the Great. So Darius the Great was the third. There you go. Was the third king of kings of a Achaemenid empire, reigning from 522 BC until his death in 486 BC. He ruled the empire at its territorial peak when it included much Western Asia, parts of Balkans. So that's the third king. So we have, let me say it again. We got Cyrus, Cambyses the second, and Darius. All right. Let's read that again. Daniel's 11 and verse 2. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet three kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. Now, who's this fourth? This fourth goes into Xerxes. How do we know? Let's go back to Wikipedia. Darius the Great. Who is his successor? Xerxes. This is Xerxes the Great. Let's read that. Xerxes the Great. was a Persian ruler who served as the fourth king of the kings of the Achaemenid Empire, reigning from 486 BC until his assassination in 465 BC. He was the son of Darius the Great. Now you see, now you connect the dots. And mind you, Daniel seen this before it happened. Daniel prophesied in the Babylonian captivity. This was between 605 to 538 BC. Okay. Or 535 BC, 605 to 535 BC. So Babylonian captivity was that time. And that was years before the Persian captivity, because Persia came after that. Okay, it says, and the fourth shall, that we're going back to Daniel 11 and verse 2. Read it from the top again. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet three kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. He's going to try to fight Greek, but that ain't going to work. Verse 3. And the mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. This mighty king is going into the first king of the Greeks, Alexander the Great. Okay. How do we know that? Let's go. We read that in First Maccabees. We did it last time. Let's read it again. First Maccabees 1. And let's read verse 1. And it happened after that, Alexander the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius the king. What Darius the king? Oh, wait, let's go. Darius the king, that's the fourth king. That's the fourth king. Daniel 11 and 6. I mean, Daniel 11 and 2 is talk about. Smitten Darius the king of Persia and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greek. Daniel is breaking this thing clear, like play by play. This is some good stuff, man. All right, let's go back to Daniel 11 verse 2. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according into his will. Okay. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken. What kingdom shall be broken? We read that in Daniel's 8, 8 and 8 and 9, and 8, 21 and 22. What kingdom shall be broken? Because Alexander the Great died of syphilis. You could read that in First Maccabees 1, chapter 1, First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 5 down, about he was killed. He ruled only 12 years. Read that. That's how it's broken. And shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. Those four winds goes back to the four generals. Those four generals. There's Seleucus, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Cassander. And not to his prosperity, nor according to his dominion, which he ruled. Meaning they ain't gonna do what King Alexander wanted to do, or what his desires was. They all gonna want to rule their own provinces and areas and do according to what they want to do. Okay. For his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those. Verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. This king of the south is going into Ptolemy, king of the south. Verse 6. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. So a lot of saying that. I'm reading again. Verse 6. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. How? They made a league, just like the league that Antiochus did with Ptolemy. Later on, when he made a league with the other king of Egypt. Not that this is not the same Ptolemy now. That's Ptolemy. He made a league with Ptolemy 6, made him a puppet leader. So he was the one making a league by what? Marrying off with their with his either his daughter or his sister Cleopatra. So now we're reading here. That's how they made league. They joined themselves by making a league. So they married off their daughters off to them. Same Cleopatra. All the Cleopatra was Edomites, by the way. All these Cleopatras you read, all white Edomites. So so basically, the king of the south, Ptolemy Philadelphus, and the king of the north, Antiochus the second Theos, joined together. That's what we read in verse 6. King of the south, Ptolemy Philadelphus, and king of the north, Antiochus the second Theos. Because remember, I always I'm gonna say this again. Now I'm gonna read it in First Maccabees 8. What we read in 8 and 1 about I'm gonna go to that real quick. Because you might say, who the hell is Antiochus and Antiochus the second Theos? He was one of the kings that ruled Greece in between and Antiochus Epiphanes' father on up. So this is prior to Antiochus Epiphanes' father, prior to Antiochus Epiphanes. So this is years before this. This is what we're reading here. Who was king of the south? Let me go to what I said, First Maccabees 8. First Maccabees 8. I'm gonna read verse 6. How also Antiochus the great king of Asia that came against them in battle. So this is what we read last time, how King Antiochus the Great tried a war with the Roman Republic, but failed because he took counsel with what Hannibal advised him, but he didn't follow it. And later on, he got put to flight by the Roman Republic because he didn't follow Hannibal, the black warlike general, counsel or advisement. He didn't follow it, so he later on got overthrown. And Rome found out that he took counsel with him. They like, yo, give us Hannibal, and he didn't, because Hannibal ended up going into exile, fleeing. And so they said, because of that, we're going to tax you, and we're gonna put hostage your kids, your seed after you. And one of them was Antiochus Epiphanes, was a hostage. So I'm reading this to show you, prior to this king that we're reading here, Antiochus the great king, you had Antiochus the second Theos. Why? Because this king here in First Maccabees 8 is Antiochus the third great king. So obviously the second come before him. So that's what we read in Daniel's 11 and 5. So you see how Daniel's know the history. Because I'm gonna just read off the kings that ruled prior to Antiochus the third. We just read in First Maccabees 8 and 6. You had Seleucus the first Nicator. That was one of the four generals right directly under Alexander the Great. It was Seleucus who was over Syria. He was Seleucus the first Nicator. He ruled 24 years. Then after him, you can look this all up in Wikipedia. After him was Antiochus the first Soter. He ruled 20 years. After Soter, Antiochus Soter, they all have similar names. After Antiochus, remember that's the first Antiochus. So remember this, Antiochus the first Soter. Then the second after him, going into the third, is Antiochus the second Theos. That's what we're reading in Daniel's 11 in verse 6. So this is, I gave you the timeline. So you had Alexander the Great, then the four generals, Seleucus, Cassander, Ptolemy, Lysimachus. So out of the Seleucus line, the Antioch Greek line, which is Syria or Cilicia, Phoenicia, those area came Antiochus Epiphanes. But before Antiochus Epiphanes, you had 80 some, you're talking about 100 years. 100 years before that. That's what I'm giving you. I'm showing you Daniel is breaking this down, but you're talking about years is going by. So Daniel 11 and 6 about the joining together was Ptolemy, Philadelphus, and Antiochus the second Theos. And I'm showing you where Antiochus the second Theos came out of. He came out of Seleucus the first Nicator, which was the one directly under Alexander the Great. And then after him was Antiochus the first Soter. After him was Antiochus the second Theos. That's what we read in Daniel 11 and 6 when it talks about the king of the north. That's Antiochus the second Theos. He ruled 15 years. After him came Seleucus the second Pogon, who ruled 21 years. And after him was Seleucus the third Soter. And then after that, you had Seleucus the fourth Philopator. Then after that, you had Antiochus uh I'm sorry, after Seleucus the fourth Soter came Antiochus the third the Great. That's what we read in First Maccabees 8. So I gave you the little timeline. So let's go back to Daniel 11 and 6. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves. King of the south and king of the north shall join. That's King Ptolemy, Philadelphus. That's king of the south. Then you got king of the north, Antiochus the second, Theos. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. That's Cleopatra, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in his time. So went over that history to show you that these Daniel is prophesying what we read in the book of Maccabees. That's how you know the Maccabees is canon. All right, let's go back to the Maccabees now. So these are just a brief history prior to the Hasmonean. Now we read Apollonius was one of the governors or generals that Antiochus Epiphanes left in Jerusalem to wreak havoc. And one of those things he did, he destroyed the Israelites during the Sabbath days that he found, and he destroyed those that were circumcising the children. He put us to death. Like you imagine, there's a lot of crucifixion and there's a lot of bloodshed. Understand that. Like, this is why when we tell people you wearing a cross around your neck makes no sense. You think Christ was not the only one crucified. They crucified hundreds, if not millions, thousands of us. And this is way before Christ. We're talking about the Greek captivity. Christ was in a Roman captivity. And that's why that's what we read in First Maccabees 8 when you see the Roman Republic coming into power. So let's go back. So we left off on First Maccabees. We read in First Maccabees to show you that Antiochus Epiphanes destroyed the temple, took all of the goodly gold out of the temple. The first time our temple got destroyed, and he destroyed, took our temples, vessels, destroyed the walls, all that stuff. Took us to slavery. All that stuff took place. Okay. So now I'm gonna go to Second Maccabees, the fourth chapter. Now we going, nope, wait. I wanted to deal with the intelligence. That's what it was. I was trying to think about what I had to deal with. Let's go back to Daniel's 11. What was the intelligence at? About the intelligence. Was it Daniel's? Okay, who got me out? Oh, yep. I think it was Daniel's 11 and 20, 31. Yeah, 30. Okay, for the ships of Shittim shall come against him, Antiochus Epiphany, therefore he shall be grieved and return. And his indignation against the holy covenant, that's when he came against Jerusalem, took all the goodly present things. We read that in First Maccabees 1 and 41 down. So shall he do. He shall even return and have his intelligence with him. Who is his intelligence? Who is Antiochus Epiphanes' intelligence? These are those wicked brothers. Wicked. When I say wicked, we read briefly about him in First Maccabees in Second Maccabees 5 about Menelaus. Another one of them was in Second Maccabees, the third chapter, Simon, his brother. These were Benjamites. So let's go recap on it. Let's go to Second Maccabees, third chapter. I'm gonna show you his intelligence. Second Maccabees, the third chapter, verse 4. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. So Simon, a Benjamite, was one of the intelligence. So the intelligence goes into our people siding with the heathens. Okay, so that's one. Let's go to Second Maccabees 4 and 7. We read that as also. Second Maccabees 4 and 7. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphany, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. Now, this Jason, he was a priest because he was a brother to Anias, who was a righteous priest. You read that in Second Maccabees, the third chapter, verse 1. This is that same Onias. And his brother Jason labored underhand to take the priesthood from him. Hold up, hold up. Where's these names at? Right. Yep. Second Maccabees, the four, verse 7. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphany, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. So it letting you know that not all the priests was righteous. Although he was a priest out of the line of Aaron, but he was the devil the Bible speaks of. So that's another that's one. I gave you Simon, then Jason, then another one is Second Maccabees 5:15. Yet was he not content with this, but presumed to go into the most holy temple of all the world, Menelaus, that traitor to the laws and to his own country, being his guide. So you got Menelaus, Jason, and you have Simon. Menelaus was the brother to Simon, a Benjamite. We read that in Second Maccabees, the third chapter, verse. Let's get that. Second Maccabees 3 and verse. No, that's not what I want. Second Maccabees. Where is it? Second Maccabees 4. Yeah, 4 and 23. 3 years afterward, Jason sent Menelaus, the aforesaid Simon's brother. So that's what I wanted to show you. So Menelaus and Simon are brothers. They're both Benjamites. Then you got Jason, the brother of Onias, which is the high priest. Onias was righteous, but Jason was not. So these are the intelligence we read. And let's go back to Daniel's 11 and verse 30. It says, for the ships of Kittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and force and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsook the holy covenant. So those intelligence that he had with him, who forsook the holy covenant, is those three. Is more. Is a lot of them, but that's the three main ones. Okay. So what time we got? All right. Now, Hasmonean dynasty, right? That's what we're dealing with, right? So during the time of the Macedonians, or during the time of Maccabees, not Macedonian, that's Edomite, that's Idumean, that's and Alexander Great in them. During the time of the Hasmonean dynasties, you had especially during the time of Maccabees, Jewish Maccabees in them, you had three political groups. You had Hasidim, which is the Assyrians, same thing. Assyrians and Hasidim, same thing. You had the Hellenists, then you had the Hasmoneans. I'm going to say it again. You had three political groups. You had the Assyrians, which is the Hasidim. Then you had the Hellenists, and then you had the Hasmonean. The Hasmonean and the Hasidim, or the Assyrians, were the righteous side. They was devoted to the law. The Hellenists, otherwise, and that was the wicked of our people. The Hellenists are those Menelaus, Jason, and Simon. Menelaus was the ringleader. That dude was the devil the Bible speaks of. Traitor. But I'm going to read it again. That's why the Bible tell you who he was. What was it? Second Maccabees, the fourth chapter, 4:20, 4:15. Yet was he not content with this, but presumed to go into the most holy temple of all the world. Menelaus, that traitor, this is talking about Antiochus. He was not satisfied with what he gained from Jerusalem. He went inside the temple. He went inside the temple of all. And who was his intelligence? Menelaus. That's the intelligence. So Menelaus, that traitor to the laws and to his own countrymen, being his guide, being his intelligence. That's what we read in Daniel's 11 and the third verse 30. Okay, so Menelaus was the ringleader of the Hellenist movement or the political party, the Hellenists. Okay, so again, the three parties was Hasidim, which is, or another word for them is the same thing as Assyrians. Then you had Assyrians is the, you know, the movie 300. There was a Spartan. No, I'm sorry, that's the Lysimachus. I'm sorry, take that back. But Assyrians were later on they became in the New Testament the priests. But Assyrians, they was in the Maccabees, they was called Assyrians. They were devoted to the law. They was all about the law. They were the priests, in other words. Then you got Hasmonean, they were the Maccabean. Those were the five brothers under Mattathias and them, the Hasmonean. Then you got the Hellenists. The ringleader was Menelaus. That was the devil. He was the devil the Bible speaks of. Okay. Now we got it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give you some precepts on that. Let's get First Maccabees 2:42. We just read First Maccabees chapter 1, but we're gonna go to 2:42 real quick to deal with the Hasidim. This is one of the political parties. There came there unto him a company of the Assyrians. This is Israelites, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. That's the Hasidians or the Assyrians. That's why I tell you they believed in the law. These later on, you read in the New Testament, they became all priests. Then you had what I said, Hasmonean. Okay, let's go to Second Maccabees 450. 450. Wait. Nope. First Maccabees 2. Let's deal with the Hasmonean. Nope. I'm gonna do with the Hellenists first and Hasmonean last. Hellenists, let's go to Second Maccabees 450. And so through the covetousness of them that were of power, Menelaus remained still in authority, increasing in malice, and being a great traitor to the citizens. Now, I'm gonna go to this book. You should get this book. This book is called The Judea Troubles Under Rome. This is by Rudolph R. Windsor. Remember Rudolph R. Windsor? He wrote the book of the Babylon and Timbuktu. It ain't the only book he wrote. He wrote a book called Judea Trembles Under Rome. Rudolph R. Windsor. We're going to page. I'm going to show you about Menelaus, that ringleader. Okay, page 18. Page 18. In the year of 169 BC, Antiochus decided to attack Egypt. After his military campaign there, he returned through Judea and heard that his supporter or his intelligent or his guide, his supporter Menelaus, the leader of the Hellenized political party, was engaged in a civil war against those Judeans who believed in practicing the laws of God. So I wanted to read that history to show you. Let's go back to Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter, verse 50. And so through the covetousness of them that were of power, Menelaus remained still in authority. He was in his authority. He was an authority. He was the leader of the Hellenist movement, a party, who was an authority, increasing in malice and being a great traitor traitor to the citizens of his countrymen. Okay, so that's why. So I gave you the Assyrians and the Hellenists. Now let's get the Hasmonean. We read this often. Let's go to First Maccabees 2 and verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorab from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. He had 5 sons: Joanan called Caddis, Simon called Thyses, Judas who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Avron, and Jonathan whose surname was Alphaeus. So these was the Hasmonean. So again, like I said earlier, the Hasmonean, the Hasmonean and the Hellenists, and also the Assyrian was during the time of the Maccabees. The Hasidim or the Assyrians and the Hasmoneans both believe in the law and the sanctity or sacred of the temple. So they was both those two parties joined and they believed in keeping the laws. But the Hellenist party, they did not. This is on the Menelaus and them. So let's finish off in First Maccabees, the second chapter. First Maccabees 2 and verse 6. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judea and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers." That's why it was our forefathers. It was strange for them. Like, yo, why am I seeing this decay? It's like us today in captivity. Why are we born in captivity? Why am I seeing us in the ghettos? Why am I seeing last hired, first fired? Why am I why what's the purpose of being born in such conditions? Our peoples, you go to Africa, you go to Papua New Guinea, you go to Ghana, Guyana, Ecuador. Always see our people in worst case scenario. So Mattathias is looking around like, yo, woe is me to see this type of atrocity. Now back then is a little now we didn't get to the violence of how he was experiencing. That was putting us to death, killing us, slaughtering us, killing our foremothers and our forefathers. Because remember, when you read Second Maccabees, the 7th chapter, you see that what he did, what Antiochus did to the 7 sons and his mother. And, that was during the Antiochus Epiphanes. That's why you get to read that history where he was throwing them in boiling fan, hot water, cutting off their tongue. That was butchering us, making us mammons. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna watch. Let me see if I can find it. Watch. I'm gonna show you how wicked, man. These people were selling us and putting us to death. Second Maccabees 8 in verse 11. Wherefore immediately he sent to the cities upon the seacoast, proclaiming a sale of the captive Jews. They was selling us to slavery, and promising that they should have 80 bodies for 1 talent. They sold for every 90 of us, you get 1 talent. That's slavery. Okay. And not expecting the vengeance that was to follow upon him from the Almighty God. So this was Nicanor selling us 90 slaves for 1 talent. It was some evil stuff taking place. Let's go back to First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. I'm showing you that they did much evil to our people. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm going to jump. I'm jumping because I'm trying to get to a point. You want to go to the whole chapter? The deacons, the bishops went over these chapters years ago. You can always go back and go. So I'm just hitting key points to kind of get you a gist of what's taking place historically. First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter in verse 7. He said, "Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers? Her temple is become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy." That's Antiochus came and took everything, and now he's coming to take over Modin, where Mattathias and his sons dwell at. Because after he destroyed the temple, took the temple, we read that in Second Maccabees, the 4th to 9. When you read the Maccabees, Second Maccabees come before First Maccabees. I don't know why it's like that, but Second Maccabees come before First Maccabees. So now we in First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, showing you all that took place in Second Maccabees. That's why when I started with Second Maccabees, the 3rd chapter. This was the beginning phases. That's why I started off with Seleucus the 4th, Philopator. It started off with that, and it started off. Then now I'm dealing with Antiochus, who came after Seleucus the 4th, Philopator, Antiochus Epiphany. So that's why when you read Second Maccabees, the 7th chapter, of all the 7 sons that got put to death, this was all before First Maccabees. So now this help is rising up. This help is Mattathias and his 5 sons. Okay. Let me deal with Hasmonean. Hasmonean real quick. Let's go back to First Maccabees 2 and 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon. Now, Simeon is the grandfather to Mattathias, which is the father to Judas Maccabees. Remember, I told y'all the who's who give you a lot of information. Simeon is where they get the name Hasmonean or Hasmonean from. They get it from his name, Simeon. That's why it was called the Hasmonean. Got from Simeon. Let's go back to who's who. Let's go to the Bible says Simeon, but sometimes he's called, I believe, Simon. Let's go check. We're gonna go read on the Simeon. So we're in a who's who on the Simeon. It says the grandfather of the priest Mattathias, who started the Maccabean revolt, to whom the Jewish historian Josephus and later writers attached the name of Hasmon. Thus, the descendants of Mattathias, who ruled over Judea, became known as the Hasmonean dynasty. So that's why it came in. The name derived from Simeon Mattathias' grandfather, Judas Maccabees' great grandfather. And we're reading that at First Maccabees 2 in verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon. Simeon was known, his name was Simeon Hasmonean. So that's where they get the name from. That's why the five sons later on of his great grandsons took the name Hasmonean. And that's what it was known for. That's where that name come from. So just in case you was wondering. All right. Let's go back, jump down, same chapter. We're jumping down to verse what we left off at. Verse 10. When a nation had not had part of her kingdom and gotten of her spoils, all her ornaments are taken away of the free woman, she has become a bound slave. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory, is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end thereof shall we live any longer? So this is Mattathias praising the Lord, saying, "Why, woe is me this day." And he's saying our sanctuary is laid waste. Why? Because this is First Maccabees. Let's go to Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter. Now we're going to read about that one of the intelligence, Jason. You have to jump because I'm trying to connect the dots in as much as I can in chronological order, which is kind of difficult because you got to keep jumping. All right, Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter. We read verse 7. Let's read it again. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. This is one of the intelligence. Jason, the brother of Onias, promising unto the king by intercession 303 talents of silver, and of another revenue 8 talents. So he promised the king, I'm gonna pay you this if you make me high priest. He tried to pay his way up to the top. Jason is a devil. Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have a license to set him up a place of exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. You see how wicked this dude is? He say, not only I'm going to pay you to make me high priest, but I'm going to also build a gymnasium, a place of exercise, and name it Antiochians. Whoever come worship, we Antiochians. We're your son, Antiochus Epiphanes. We're your descendants. This is some wicked stuff. This is an Israelite, a Levite doing this. This stuff is crazy. Okay, verse 10. Now I'm reading this again, is connecting the dots to First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. Why Mattathias is saying, woe is me in this day. Because all this we're reading now in Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter, took place. So now Mattathias is rising up like, yo, what the hell? After they took down Jerusalem, Antiochus moved his general to, hey, go to Modin. Let's get them now. And this is what we read in this First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. And Mattathias and them was from Modin with his sons. Okay. Now we in Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter, verse 10. When the king had granted and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion. This is the beginning of the Hellenist party or the Hellenist political movement. Understand that thing. We go remember Menelaus was the ringleader, but it started with Jason Wick himself. Okay, verse 11. And the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolamus, who wanted and who went ambassador to Rome for enmity and aid, he took away and put it down the governments which was according to the law. He brought up new customs against the law. So now this wicked Jason, I'm gonna show you about Eupolamus. Remember, he was used by Judas Maccabees to um to make ambassadors. Because remember, we read in First Maccabees 8 about Judas Maccabees was this is last class, not here. Last time I did this, he studied the Romans, and what Judas did is he sent ambassadors to Rome to make amity of what do you call that? Amity is friendly relations with Rome. So now we're reading like Jason is destroying that covenant that was bonded with them. So he's destroying that. Let me get that. If it was First Maccabees 8:17, just for reference. I'm gonna go read it again. If you didn't watch the last class I did, First Maccabees 8:17. This was what Judas Maccabees did when he was studying the Romans. Yes, First Maccabees 8:17. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achos, and Jason, the son of Eleazar. This is not the same Jason we read in Second Maccabees 4. It's not the same Jason. This is Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make a league of amity and confederacy with them. So this is now going. Now we're going back to Second Maccabees 4, verse 11, when Jason labored underhand to take high priests. He's destroying that union by destroying what Eupolemius did when Judas Maccabees set him up. Let's go Second Maccabees 4:11. And the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemius, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away. You understand that? So he destroyed that what Judas set up. And putting down the governments, which was according to the law, he brought up new customs against the law. That's those Greekish fashions, those gymnasiums where they was doing it. Back then they was working out butt naked. That's why you see today when you go to gyms. I know brothers be going to the gym. I like to work out in my garage. That gym stuff is wickedness in there. Because guess what, women, they don't be butt naked, but they do be butt naked. They be in there wearing spandex. Women in there with spandex. That's naked. That's naked because spandex is supposed to be undergarment. So it's the same thing today. So when you go to the gym, I'm not saying going to the gym is wrong, but it just show you, be mindful of that because the spirit will jump on you. You know, saying, especially you single brothers, you know, and even you women that's not married, going in there, seeing brothers over there with they tight shirts, looking in the mirror, pumping up, doing that. We reading the birth of that right here. Okay. Second Maccabees, we back in Second Maccabees 4, verse 12 now. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself. You see that? Those are your Planet Fitness. What they got? There's so many. Planet Fitness, YouFit, all that good stuff. That's what you got today. All these gyms throughout America is what they got it from here. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower of itself and brought the chief young men under his subjection and made them wear a hat. That's your New York hat, fitted hat, or you watch the movie Flash, that superhero, that hat they had, or the kufi that these Amalek wear. All those hats, they always made us wear hats. That's why today you see Judah love having hats on their head. They got the fitted hat, the Mitchell and Ness hat. They got these different hats. That's what we did. It's in our spirit because we was trained to wear hats back then. You know. Verse 13. Now, such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of heathenish manners, though through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest, that the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. Discus, when you look up that sport, is during the time of the Olympics. You get, them big dudes that be wearing them skin tight outfits, showing all they figure like some homo stuff, and they hold this disc. It's a circular thing, and it's heavy too. It's like I forget how heavy it is, but it's very heavy. Some of them 2-3 pounds, some 10 pounds, but they turn and swing it across the football field to see how far they can swing it, by cuffing it in their hand like this, and they swing it and they measure how far it goes. So, and based on how far you can swing it, says who's strong, and that's the sport. It's a sport. It's called discus. Verse 15, not setting by the honors, and not just that, they did running, jumping, pole vaulting. Pole vaulting is you got that big pole, you run, is a big mat, and is a pole they put on two poles like this. It's like a T shape. Like, let me show you. It's like this. It's like this, and there's a mat underneath it right here. And then you'll take a pole and run and be pole vaulted over it and land on a mat. And they keep raising it, and how high you can do it, you win the match. Another thing is high jumping. Same thing. They got a pole like this, and you run and you jump over it with your back towards the pole when you're in the air and land. And they raise it up to see how high you can jump. It's called high jump. Then you got long jumping. All this is our Greekish fashion. Just watch the Olympic. You'll see that stuff. Okay. Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter, we in verse 14 now. That the priests had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting their sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. Today you got football, NFL, basketball, all that is Greekish fashion. Every last one. The Greek fraternities and the universities. That's why we're doing it today. That's exactly why we partaking in it, and we think it is our customs, but it was in the Greek captivity. Verse 15, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. Why? Because serving the Greece and going under the Hellenist party or Hellenist movement, it has a lot of pleasures. So the priests get to have sex with all these women. They get to have orgies in the middle of the damn street. This was during the time of Roman Republic. That's what they did. And even in the Greek camp, during these gymnasium, you know how they got saunas where you got to go butt naked and sweat. That back then it was just butt naked working out. That's the height of the Greekish fashion. They loved that thing. It was a lot of pleasures in that thing. But verse 16, by reason whereof sore calamities came upon them. Why? A lot of these athletes got injured. You do that pole, you jump high, you miss the mat, fall on your head and break your damn back. You do long jump, break your damn leg because you too much momentum. Landing on your leg awkwardly, playing football, running with the ball, run, boop, Achilles, or basketball, break your ankle. That's why God say, by reason whereof sore calamities came upon them. We're still on verse 16. For they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things. Bruh, we love the Grecians so much. We did exactly what they was doing. We love their customs. We followed it so earnestly, even till this very day. Our people love the heathen. Even when we was leaving Egypt, when they was complaining with Moses. Since we came in the wilderness, Moses, they murmured against Moses. We want for everything. But when we was in Egypt, we was able to eat good. That was always the rule of our people. Wicked as hell. And they persuade the other people. Okay. Verse 17, for it is not a light thing so to do wickedly against the laws of God, but the time following shall declare these things. Verse 18, now when the game that was used every 5th year was kept at Tyrus, the king being present, this ungracious Jason sent special messengers from Jerusalem, who was Antiochians, to carry 300 drachms of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules. So this wicked dude, he called him Antiochus. Antiochus is going into our people. Because remember, going back to verse 9, 2 Maccabees 4:9. Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place of exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. So he took the youth. That's why you have these football scouts, recruiters go to the ghettos and inner cities when our kids are 5, 6 years old, recruiting them early. Yo, you could be in the NFL, man. We're gonna get you early. All started with Jason, wicked of our people. All started with him. Why? To when you get them young, we got them. They gonna think that's the way of life. All right, we're going back to 2 Maccabees 4:19. This ungracious Jason sent special messages from Jerusalem, who was Antiochians, to carry 300 drachms of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules, which even the briars thereof thought fit not to bestow upon the sacrifice, because it was not convenient, but to be reserved for other charges. This money then, so even they were like, man, this might not be wise. We need to leave this money for other things that we might need in the future. Verse 20, this money then is regard of the sender was appointed to Hercules' sacrifice, but because of the briars thereof, it was employed to the making of galleys. So they change it and make galleys with them. Verse 21, now when Apollonius, the son of Menethias, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of the king Ptolemaeus Philopator, Antiochus understanding him not to be well affected to his affairs, provided for his own safety, whereupon he came to Joppa, and from thence to Jerusalem, where he was honorably received of Jason. So this Antiochus Epiphanes came to Jerusalem, and this is where he was honorably received of Jason. And Jason came to give him, damn near had he set up a good hospitable setup for Antiochus, okay, and of the city, and was brought in with torchlight and with great shoutings, and so afterwards went with his hosts unto Phoenix. Verse 23, 3 years after Jason sent Menelaus, the aforesaid Simon's brother, to bear the money unto the king and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters. So now, that's why I say when you read verses, it'll be years passing by. So now here we are 3 years later after this took place. Jason sent Menelaus, the Benjamite, Simon's brother, to go pay the money to the king, what they would do. And he also made sure he gave extra to make sure the king uphold his promise to Jason of leaving him to be high priest. Okay. This is how you know wicked don't respect wicked. So Menelaus is wicked and Jason is wicked. So Jason sent a wicked Menelaus to pay the fee. Verse 24, but he being brought to the presence of the king, when he had magnified him for the glorious appearance of his power, got the priesthood to himself. You see how wicked? These dudes so wicked, they wicked amongst themselves. They can't even unite. That's how you know wickedness never prosper, even within wickedness, even within the gang of wickedness. Meaning, you both are wicked. Y'all so wicked, y'all wicked amongst each other. Ain't that some wicked stuff? That's crazy. Okay. Where we at? 3 years after, so Menelaus labored underhand Jason to take the high priest, after Jason labored underhand his brother Onias in verse 7 to take high priest, to pay for high priest. So now the Lord put the spirit on Menelaus to do the same thing on him. Even though he wicked, the Lord said, I'm gonna move you out the way. Verse 24. But he being brought to the I read that already. I'm gonna read it again. But he being brought to the presence of the king, Menelaus, that is, when he had magnified him for the glorious appearance of his power, got the priesthood to himself, offering more than Jason by 300 talents of silver. He said, I'm gonna give him more money so I can take the priesthood to myself. Verse 25. So he came with the king's mandate, bringing nothing worthy to the high priesthood, but having the fur of the cruel tyrant and the rage of a savage beast. Then Jason, who had undermined his own brother, not a Lord that then Jason, who had undermined his own brother, being undermined by another, was compelled to flee into the country of the Amorites. Ammonites. I'm sorry, Ammonites. He went to Moab. He went to Japan. Ammonites to Japan. That's how wicked he is. So he underhand his brother, and the Lord put the spirit on Menelaus to underhand him. Okay, verse 27. What time we got? Okay, we at 640. Okay. So Menelaus got the principality, but as for the money that he had promised unto the king, he took no good order for it, albeit Sostratus, the ruler of the castle, required it. Meaning he promised the money, but he ain't paid the king. But Sostratus, the governor, said, "No, we want that money. You're gonna pay for that money." Verse 28: For unto him are pertained the gathering of the customs. Why? Because Sostratus, that was his job. He was a treasurer. Wherefore they were both called before the king. So the king called both of them. Verse 29. Now Menelaus left his brother Lysimachus in his stead in the priesthood. Remember, Menelaus is not a priest. It was Jason, but Menelaus took it from Jason, and Jason ended up running to the Ammonites territory. So Menelaus took the high priesthood from him. So and when Menelaus was summoned by the king to come before the king for that money he owed, he left his brother Lysimachus. I'm sorry, not Lysimachus in his stead in the priesthood, and Sostres left Crates, who was governor of Cyprus. So both of them was summoned by the king. While verse 30, while those things were in doing, they of Tarshish and Molis made insurrection because they were given to the king's concubine called Antiochus. This is what's her name? Her name Antiochus. That's the king's uh girl or wife. Then came because remember certain provinces he allotted to her and she was ruler over it. Again, you can go to the who's who and read more of that. But I'm for sake of time, read on. Then came the king in all haste to appease matters. Because why? Because it was civil war when she was ruling. They went against her, and he left to go defend her cause. Then came the king in all haste to appease matters, leaving Andronicus, a man in authority for his deputy. Now Menelaus, supposing that he had so upon being summoned, Menelaus and what's the other brother name? Sostratus, to explain to him where the money went. A civil war was taking place in the provinces where his wife ruled. Her name was Antiochus, verse 30. Upon hearing that, Antiochus Epiphanes, not waiting for the two he summons, left to go get things in order back where she was to help his wife. So during this time, Menelaus took opportunity to, damn, I'm about to get killed by the king. Let me come up with this money and pay this. Let's see what he did. Let me read on. Verse 32. Now Menelaus, supposing that he had gotten a convenient time, stole certain vessels of gold out of the temple and gave some to Andronicus, and some he sold into Tyrus and the cities round about. Because remember, Andronicus, King Antiochus, left to rule and be deputy while he was away. And upon this, they end up coming to before the king, but the king was not there, but he left Andronicus behind. And Menelaus decided, let me take some money from the temple and give to him and tell him, no, put a word in for me for the king, so the king don't do nothing to me. Here, this money, blah, 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 blah. And later on, when you read in the chapter, that's exactly what Andronicus did. So when the king returned, Andronicus spoke on the behalf of Menelaus, and Menelaus became, now he was free from the judgment that the king was about to do to him for not paying that original money he was supposed to do. Let's read on. Verse 33, which when Onias knew of the surety, he reproved him and withdraw himself into a sanctuary of Daphne that lied by Antiochia. So when Onias knew that what Menelaus did, took money from the temple, he just fled and went to another temple in another city, left Jerusalem. This that same Onias, Jason's brother, the righteous, Onias the righteous. Jason was wicked. Last verse, and I'm going to close it out. Verse 34. Verse 34, wherefore Menelaus, taking Andronicus apart, prayed him to get Onias into his hand, who being persuaded thereunto, and coming to Onias in deceit, and gave him his right hand with oath, and though he were suspected by him, yet persuaded he him to come forth of the sanctuary, whom forthwith he shut him without regard of justice. So not only that Menelaus labored underhand to get high priest under Jason, Ananias' brother, he also paid Andronicus to get the king Antiochus Epiphanes off his back. And Andronicus agreed, took the money, and he said, I'm going to talk on your behalf so the king don't do nothing to you. And he said, furthermore, Menelaus said, you know what? Get Onias for me, because Onias always preaching against what I'm doing. So I need him out the way. So Adronicus agreed. He said, I'm gonna go get him. So he went to go get Onias. He later on put him to death, and get him out the way, and for because of Menelaus. So Menelaus was wicked as hell. He was a priest. No, he was a Benjamite. He killed. So he ended up getting the high priest put to death. We're gonna read later on when we come back. We left off on verse 34. So next time I do history in the AM, hopefully I got some edification on that. Let's start do history in the AM. I'm gonna start off with Second Maccabees, the fourth chapter, verse 35, to further that history. So all praise to the Most High. And I'm also, I thought I was gonna get to the Hasmonean, but right now we're dealing with the Hellenist party, a Hellenist party. Okay, it's starting off with Jason and Menelaus, the ringleader. Remember, it's three parties. Don't forget that three parties during the time of the Maccabees was the Hasidim or Assyrians, who believed in the laws and its temple customs, who later on we read that become the priests in Roman in the New Testament. They call themselves or the Pharisees, scribes of Pharisees. Then you got Hasmonean, the Hasmonean or the Maccabean. We read about that with the five brothers. They got their name from their grandfather Simeon. And but now we're going over the Hellenist party right now, which is led by Menelaus. First Jason, then now Menelaus, who killed just now got the high Ananias killed by Andronicus. So with that, Israel, that's our time. Hopefully you got some edification about that. So Lord's will, next time I'm gonna do a part 3 of the Hasmonean dynasty. Hasmonean dynasty. All right. Eventually I'm gonna end it off and show you how the Hasmonean brothers wreaked havoc amongst these wicked Greeks, these Idumeans, these Edomites, and also show you the fall of the brothers. All right. With that, Israel, I say shalom. Most High Christ bless.